if current social and political trends in Chile continue, certainly the copper price will increase because Chile is also the most important copper producer in the world. And there is nothing in the world that can screw up a good economy like a bad government.
Welcome to In It to Win It. This is Steve Barton, and thank you for tuning in. We are back with the man, the myth, the legend, Rick Rule. Rick, thank you for coming back on the show.
A pleasure, Steve. Thank you for having me back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to get started. We got a big day coming up. We're recording this today on Monday, April 24th, and this Saturday, April 29th, we've got your electric and battery metals boot camp. Maybe you could just take 90 seconds or a couple minutes and tell us what we can expect for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Your listeners have been great attendees at the prior boot camps, the uranium boot camp and the silver boot camp. And the boot camp series is really an attempt to introduce investors and speculators to one specific area of natural resource investing. We put on generally between 8 and 8.5 hours of intensive programming. We do it virtually. In other words, you don't have to go to a physical conference. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. Consequence of that is that people from 33 countries have attended our boot camps, and you have access to the material for 6 months. It's important that you revisit the boot camps because nobody on earth can absorb 8 hours worth of material of this quality in one sitting. I've now reviewed the uranium boot camp 4 times, and I put it on. So let's get to the electric and battery metals boot camp. It's, I think, obviously important that anybody who is a resource investor thinks about probably the most important trends in resource investing in humankind, which is to say, the increasing electrification of the world and the increasing density of energy use, even among rich people, people in the Western world, not just electric vehicles, but all forms of electrification. And there isn't a topic that I'm aware of that has more information floating around it than electric and battery metals. So for that reason, we're going to put on an 8-hour long symposium around the topic. We begin with WMC Minerals, the people who manage and buy and sell for Sprott the uranium trust products and also the new electric and battery metals products. These are very, very, very high quality consultants in the space. And we'll begin by having them give our listeners an 1.5-hour long overview in detail of what's really going on in the market, supply, demand, technology, to set the stage. We'll move on from there to some of the best analysts in the space. Once you have the basics, the question becomes, what should you do about it? And from there, we'll move on to presentations by individual issuers. That is to say, listed companies in those spaces, not just any listed companies, however. The qualification to be an exhibitor at a Rule Investment Media sponsored event is that we have to own your stock. Sadly, Steve, as you know, there's no guarantee that just because I own something, the stock goes up. But there is a guarantee that I've studied it well enough that I'm willing to invest my own time and treasure in it. Importantly, anybody who attends and pays for any Rule Investment Media educational product enjoys an ironclad money-back guarantee. If you don't feel that you have gotten your $99 worth, simply email me and I will return the money. It's important to note that in 30 years of these ironclad money-back guarantees, I probably haven't had to refund 0.1% of the tuitions paid, but it's there. If you didn't get your money's worth, I don't want your money. You get it back. If you care about the electrification of the world, if you care about making money in what I consider to be the biggest trend in natural resources for the next decade, which is to say energy and energy transition, I would suggest to you that this is an absolutely must-attend event.
I'm very excited. I'm only playing the beta right now, but I'm really excited for your conference. If you are as well, then there's a link down in the show notes. Support the show. Rick has been nice enough to kick back a little bit from everyone that signs up. and it's a win-win. I will see you Saturday. Super excited. Okay, we got a lot of questions here. While we're on the battery metals, we got some questions from listeners about copper, and I'm going to try to kind of consolidate them here. Maybe we can start off by macro view of Chile and recent events with Chile. What should we be thinking about when we're picking companies in that country?
Well, Chile politically and socially is deteriorating fairly rapidly. The Chilean citizenry has decided to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. It has become, from a standing start, the most prosperous nation on a per capita basis in Latin America. And it did that by adopting free market policies and an intelligent and pragmatic approach to government. What's happened, I suspect, is that the big thinkers have decided that they're now going to redistribute all of this largesse from those who earned it to those who vote, something that a process that Americans and Canadians are certainly familiar with. This is bad for Chile. This is bad for investors in extractive industries in Chile. And this is bad for the world's consumers. If you look at the Chilean government's track record mining and operating mines, be it iron mines or copper mines, you will see a track record virtually unblemished by success. And one can expect that they now will seek to transfer this lack of success into the lithium business. So people who invest in Chile, who prominently include myself, Chile has probably been the most rewarding investment destination for me personally of any destination in the world in the last 40 years. But I need to recognize that all good things come to an end. It may be that the Chilean voters have the good sense to say no to this. It's worth noting that President Boric tried to change the Chilean constitution and the Chilean tax code. And when these changes were put to the voters told him to pound sand. The same voters that elected him, the same voters, I guess, that want him to redistribute all the goodies, understand well enough that rather than redistribute the goodies, he will destroy the economy's ability to redistribute the goodies. So it may be that the Chilean voter is schizophrenic enough to deny power to the person that they put in power. Hope, of course, springs eternal. If the current trends in Chile continue, almost certainly over time, the lithium price will benefit because Chile is the largest and lowest cost lithium producer in the world, and government will snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. If current social and political trends in Chile continue, certainly the copper price will increase because Chile is also the most important copper producer in the world. And there is nothing in the world that can screw up a good economy like a bad government.
Okay. With that in mind, Jeff Swainer asks about London Mining Corporation, that the copper mine down in Chile.
Pronounced Lundin.
Lundin.
The questioner needs to know I own that company personally. So you're talking my own book, and bias should be disclosed. Lundin is in the process of making a very large, very risky, and potentially very rewarding acquisition in Chile, where they already operate. They're buying a mine called the Caserones mine, which is a gigantic mine operated by Japanese interests. The risks are that this mine is one of the lower grade big mines in the world, producing copper at about 1/3 of 1%, below the industry average grade, which is about 0.5%. Low-grade mines can make a lot of money if you operate them at scale. The current owners of the mine have never been able to get it to its nameplate capacity, which is 150,000 tons a day. They operate at about 100,000 tons a day. The Lundins are making the bet that by lavishing love, care, attention, and in particular capital on this mine, that they can take it to its nameplate capacity of 150,000 tons a day. If they were able to do that, and if the copper prices do what I think the copper prices are going to do, this acquisition is a long ball home run. But note I said if, the jury is still out. The Lundin family over 40 years has a wonderful track record of buying large, underloved assets, investing the capital that's needed in them rather than milking them for cash flow, and building, multi-decade long operations. It's worthy to note, too, that the Caserones mine is in the same geological environment as the Lundin family's wonderful deposits right across the Argentine border. So it looks as though the Lundins are trying to develop an expertise around large, high altitude copper gold porphyries in the high Andes. If you look at the success that the Lundin family has enjoyed in natural resource exploration and exploitation, going all the way back to 1966, if you can afford to bet with them, it's not a bad bet. Betting against them has been a disaster for the last 50 years.
Okay. Rick Fool and Jeffrey Spalding want to know about the Chilean copper miner, Hot Chile.
Hot Chile isn't a miner. Hot Chile is an exploration company and development company. Again, I own Hot Chile. It's important to note that this is a bet for size, for infrastructure, and against grade, which is to say this is an average grade deposit, or rather cluster of deposits. What I like about Hot Chile is it's located almost on the Chilean coast rather than in the high Andes. It's around good infrastructure. It's near a town that's got a bunch of miners in it, so they have access to labor. It's on the Chilean power grid. It's on the Pan American Highway. It is, if my memory serves me correctly, about 15 miles, 25 kilometers from the ocean. So water, albeit desalinated water, will be available to them. The problem with the deposits are that they are relatively low grade and or deep, a bad combination. What I have found is that these porphyries occur in bunches, and the fact that they have encountered 3 porphyries so far gives me some confidence that what they have is a porphyry cluster, and that the very large extent of mineralization will give them the ability, with additional exploration expenditures, to find higher grade cores, some of which might be closer to surface, so that they can begin the process of mining these gigantic deposits in a rich enough strata that they can get back the upfront capital costs, the huge upfront capital costs that will be required to put these things in production. Once again, I own Hot Chile, but understand that this is speculative at current prices.
Yeah. If you gave both of those companies, Lundin and Hot Chile, a ranking, what would they be?
I have Lundin as a 4, with the potential for either upgrade or downgrade, depending on the acquisition. I have Hot Chile as a 5. Hot Chile could easily become a 4 if the drill bit showed a higher grade core somewhere high enough in the system that they could get a more rapid repayment of capital.
Okay. All right. Carlos from Spain, our number 1 fan from Spain, is asking about First Majestic. I remember we talked about this before they while they were running Jerritt Canyon, and the numbers I had, their all-in sustaining cost was $22,326 for gold, and when you're selling that at 1,900, as you said, that's not a whole lot of fun. Now that they've closed Jerritt Canyon, what are your thoughts on First Majestic?
I'm not an owner of First Majestic, although I have been for a very long time, on and off. First Majestic is a very interesting company. They have a track record going back 20 years of buying big projects that have been milked for cash by their prior owners, and investing time and trouble in them and returning them to higher levels of production. The last time we talked, I said that the jury's out on Jerritt Canyon, that I wouldn't be buying the company until they proved that they could operate it in the same fashion that they operate San Dimas. They have, as of yet, been unable to do that. They made the tough decision of shutting it down, and they're intending on spending fairly immediately $25 or $30 million to convert resources to reserve, so that they can reopen the mine intelligently. I'm all in favor of this. I think they're doing a great job. but I'm not going to own it until they demonstrate it to me. People who are believers in a higher silver price in the near term need to consider owning First Majestic anyway, not because of the operational optionality, but rather because of the silver price optionality. First Majestic has the ability to be a very, very large silver producer. And they also have a shareholder base that are very responsive to changes in the silver price. So as a market play on the optionality in the silver price, I don't know anything better than First Majestic, because I personally am more interested in operational optionality than I am silver price optionality. I don't own it, and I won't own it until I get some resolution around Jerritt Canyon, or until the share price has declined to the point where Jerritt Canyon is irrelevant in my decision-making process.
What ranking would you give First Majestic right now?
I have First Majestic as a 6 at present.
Okay. All right. The next company, Rick, you've spoken highly of Thomas Kaplan, founder of Gatos Silver. What are your thoughts on Gatos Silver now?
Again, the jury's out. Gatos Silver was put in production based on a feasibility study that proved in retrospect to be a faulty feasibility study. As I understand it, one of the faults has been that they had 50-meter centers of influence in their drilling, where at least the higher grade parts of that deposit should have been drilled off on much closer spacings, so that they delineated the ore body and its mineability in better fashion. I do not own Gatos Silver, and I won't own Gatos Silver until I see greater drilling densities published, so that I can get a better sense, and so that frankly management can get a better sense of what the Gatos deposit is worth.
Yeah, what they got underground.
I have a very, very, very high regard for Tom Kaplan. He's a personal friend. He's somebody I've made a lot of money investing with. So I want the listeners to understand this is all about the ore body, not about the people.
Okay. Okay. It's about the deposit. Okay. Where is Rick deploying his money the most? This is from FR Valen, 1987. Uranium, gold, cash, other?
Sadly, right now, cash. When I say sadly, cash is a very good thing. I have been coming off some investments I made in 1990, 1991, and 1992 in developed real estate, primarily in the U.S. South. Well, rather, I've come off that portfolio, and I've built up what is for me a lot of cash, which I'm seeking to deploy. My biggest new investment has been in my new bank under development, Battle Bank. I am, by temperament, a banker and an entrepreneur. And the ability to build a new bank, I've been part of the building of 6 de novo banks prior to this, is the most exciting thing that I'm doing with my own money. The current banking crisis, I think, is as good a time as I have ever seen in my life to build a new bank, because people who hitherto for 40 years had been comfortable with their bank against all odds are no longer comfortable. And the right time to disrupt an industry is when the industry's customers are in flux. In particular, I'm excited about building a bank that lends money to people who hold physical precious metals. There is no better collateral that I know of than a highly liquid medium of exchange that's simultaneously a store of value. And I look forward to being the lender of choice, which I almost certainly will be, to that community of individuals which chooses to hold physical gold and silver in segregated accounts. Building a bank around that is very attractive. But I also look forward to being a bank that satisfies, on a project basis, borrowers from the mining and the oil and gas community. It never occurred to me at age 70 that I would once again be able to come back into oil and gas lending, which is an activity that I was involved in my 20s. I thought that the biggest banks in the world would continue to have that sector sewed up. but the biggest banks in the world are leaving that sector, much to my delight. Steve, I joke that even a fat, balding 70-year-old can win the 100-yard dash if I'm the only guy that shows up to run. And the fact that all of these big banks, all these big thinkers are leaving the best banking activity known to man, which is revolving credit facilities, secured by proved, developed, producing oil and gas reserves, is probably as good an opportunity as I've seen in my career, not just to be an equity investor, but much more importantly for me, to be a secured lender.
Okay, cash. I like that. Our model portfolio is still 25% cash. So
well, cash, and for me, bank.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay, from Rookie Mistake. Ask Rick if he had to choose a gold ETF, what would it be?
Well, if I had to choose a gold ETF, it would be the Sprott ETF, because I had, one of the Sprott ETFs. I had a substantial say in creating them. If I'm in an ETF, I want an ETF that's factors based, which is to say qualitative, not one that's simply based on size and trading liquidity. So if I had to buy an ETF, I would buy, depending on whether I wanted to capture market beta or market alpha, either the Sprott large cap ETF or the Sprott small cap ETF, looking at things like revenue growth. It's important that you understand that gold investment, well, all investment is more factors based than liquidity and size based.
Okay. Let's move on to uranium, because we got a lot of questions on uranium. Maybe we'll just start out macro from Craig. What are your current thoughts on uranium? And then he put 12 months ? 3 years ?
Well, the question mark remains. I don't know. I suspect that the turning point in uranium prices is 2023, which is to say the year that we're in. I suspect that because I've believed for 10 years that the most important determinant of the near term in uranium prices is the restart of the Japanese nuclear fleet. And the restart of the Japanese nuclear fleet is happening in 2023 and 2024. That is the biggest source of new demand available to the market, much bigger than, as an example, small, medium, SMR reactors, which will impact uranium demand 10 years from now or 12 years from now. The thing that impacts today's price is an increase in demand now. And that's what the Japanese restarts do. And they do it in a market that has been tightened up by Sprott, which bought 55 million pounds of uranium and took it off the market. I like uranium in a macro sense for reasons that you and I have discussed. It costs the industry on a fully loaded basis, not an AISC basis, on a fully loaded basis, about $60 a pound to make the stuff. So you make it for 60, you sell it for 50. You do it 130 million times a year, which means you lose $1.3 billion as an industry. And of course, you try and make it up on volume. What this means is that either the price goes up or the lights go out. It really, truly is that simple. But $60 isn't the whole number. The incentive price for new production, to build a new mine, to finance the new mine, to pay the fees and taxes on the new mine, to account for time value of money, is more like $75 a pound. So to keep pace with the increase in demand that we're seeing for nuclear power plants around the world, the price of uranium needs to go from $50 a pound to $75 a pound, which I think will happen.
Okay. This is from our number one fan from Germany, Wolfgang. Best regards from the country of the biggest big thinkers. Says, could uranium demand be affected by newer reactor designs? He's talking about the molten salt reactors, which are able to run on, air quotes here, nuclear waste or even highly concentrated U-235 material from the military.
Yes, particularly U-235, which I think is a very good thing. The idea that we take weapons grade uranium and take it out of the hands of people who are bent on killing each other, and use it to generate electricity, I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that no matter what we do, that the current technology that's in place around nuclear reactors will be the predominant technology for the next 20 or 25 years, which is to say, the changes that the gentleman talks about are changes that will take place, but they'll take place years from now. And on a net present value basis, while they'll make an enormous difference to the future of humankind, a beneficial difference, they won't make any difference at all in terms of the net present value of uranium producers, because cash flows enjoyed 25 years from now at an 8% discount have no net present value. Yeah. Other things, you will see small reactors powering most big ocean-going transport. 45,000 deadweight ton container ships will be powered by small nuclear reactors. The world's oil tanker fleet will be powered by small reactors. You will see modular SMR reactors around the world 20, 25, 30, 50 years from today. But you won't see them before 2030. And what will make a difference to the uranium price is what happens between now and 2030.
Okay. Nothing we need to worry about right now. Okay. From Triangle Investor, this one got a lot of traffic. Did Rick participate in the recent GoviEx Uranium private placement?
I did not participate in the GoviEx Uranium private placement. The current move we're seeing in uranium stocks and the improvement in the political and sociological conditions in Niger certainly argue for GoviEx and other Niger-based uranium companies. The fact that they were able to get that placement off without including a warrant, congratulations to GoviEx management, particularly Govin Friedland and Dan Major. But while the company is relatively attractive, from my point of view, the terms and conditions of the placement weren't. They were too successful.
Okay, last one. Nolan Sackett, thoughts on Rio Tinto and BHP?
I think over the course of a decade, you can't go wrong with either, frankly. That doesn't mean that neither of them won't trade 20 or 30% lower if we have a global recession or a global depression. These companies benefit from ongoing demand for oil. They demand iron, copper. I mean, these are global industrial materials behemoths. They are both generating amazing amounts of free cash from hard work done over the last 3 decades. They both have reasonable development pipelines. They are both reasonably well run in terms of capital allocation, although both of them are pandering idiotically to some of the misplaced geopolitical ESG considerations put forward by the aforementioned big thinkers. But for current yield, for stability of yield, for participation in the ascent of humankind, the material ascent of humankind, I think they're both part of any intelligently constructed portfolio.
Okay. Rankings for both Rio Tinto.
Both companies are at 4.
Okay. All right. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Rick. This was a lot of fun. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yes, of course. For any of your listeners who are interested in conducting further discussions with me, ones that are more custom, any of your listeners who go to my website, ruleinvestmentmedia.com, can have me personally rank their natural resource portfolios. Go to the website, list your natural resource stocks. We follow over 800 companies. We will rank those companies that we know in your portfolio 1 to 10, 1 being best, 10 being worst. And we will comment on individual issues where we think our comments might have some value. For any of your listeners who are questioning their relationship with their current banks, if, as an example, they think that they should be paid a fair rate of interest as depositors, or they'd like to invest in a bank that's a real bank that has money in it, or they'd like to borrow against their physical gold and silver which their bank for some reason doesn't think is good collateral. In the question and comment section at Rule Investment Media, simply write bank, and we'll put you on the waiting list to learn more about Battle Bank, which is an organization once its operation has been approved of by the regulators.
Awesome. Well, rank your portfolio. Those links will be in the show notes. Your upcoming battery metals bootcamp will be down there as well. And if you're interested in Battle Bank, talk to Rick. Rick, thank you very much. You have a great rest of the day, sir, and we will talk to you next time.
Always a pleasure, Steve. I hope the fish continue to be generous with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.